Sunday.
Yay.
Sunday. So happy to be here today. I think only positive thoughts, and I am one with the absolute positive thinking in the mind of God within me. I think only positive thoughts, and I am one with the absolute positive thinking in the mind of God. So can you guess what my talk is going to be about today? Positivity, in particular, a positive attitude. So I believe myself to be positive most of the time. At least people think that I am because I always have a smile on my face. I was even nicknamed Smiley, like back when I used to go into the military base, and people at the gate used to always say, "Hi, Smiley," every time I would come, because I used to work at the Fort Jackson Commissary. So, I feel it's better to keep a smile on my face most of the time, because, I don't think it helps to frown all the time. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help the world. So I try to keep a smile on my face most of the time. So usually when I do a talk, I always like to refer back to one of my favorite books, the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary by, the co-founder of MNT, Charles Fillmore. And he tells us that an attitude is, I like having it in my hand, but he tells us that a positive attitude is defined as a state of mind in relation to some matter or situation. It is a mental position. Our attitude of mind toward our environment determines the nature of our environment. And he goes on to distinguish between what a positive attitude is and what a negative attitude is. And he tells us that a positive attitude draws the good. It draws the good to us. Whereas a negative attitude brings its train of sin, sickness, and even death. If we refer to the Bible, a good Bible verse for this would be Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. There's also a book called that, As a Man Thinketh, by James Allen. I read that book. I try to read it like almost every new book that there is. So it's a good book. You should check it out. But I'm also going to explore what the late Dr. Paul Leon Masters of the University of Metaphysics also tells us about attitudes. It's in the ministers' modules that I went over, and in chapter 5, he has a chapter that's called Establishing and Maintaining a Positive Transcendent Attitude. Now, he also distinguishes between what a positive attitude is and what a negative attitude is. And he says a negative attitude is brought about through a pessimistic opinion of one's life and life in general. And then he tells us that a positive attitude has as its foundation a faith established in something. It is a belief in the inherent good of life. In our unity principles, we believe that everybody is inherently good. No matter who you are, we're all inherently good. Now, he tells us that we have to be careful about positivism, that we have to make sure it's not based on our ego. Positivism must be based on reality of selfhood and identity that is the transcendent nature of our true reality. And this true reality is the power, wisdom, and presence of the God mind of the universe within each of us. He goes on to say a positive attitude comes from seeing things as they actually are, versus seeing it as we think it should be, as what others tell us to be, but as it actually really is at the moment. We have to also remember that every experience that we go through, whether it's large or small, it is a step upward in the growth and perfection of our soul, and through it, our manifestation of being. Throughout our life, the attitude we carry within us is stimulating responses both outwardly in the world and inwardly within us. If we want to bring the desired results or responses for creating a better life, then our daily attitude must be one of positive transcendence. So what happens if our attitude is not positive? Well, Dr. Masters tells us that we damage ourselves in 3 ways. We damage ourselves psychologically by accepting failure thoughts. And then we damage ourselves psychically by failing to maintain a positive attitude. And then we damage ourselves spiritually through our thoughts by putting forth a negative attitude. Do anyone like to read the news here? Anyone? Yeah, I like to read the news too, but I know many people say, it's not good to read the news, especially negative news, because, it affects your attitude. Well, I feel like, I like to keep up with what's going on in the world, so I like to read the news. But I try to approach reading the news with a certain attitude. I try to remind myself, everything has a purpose. I can show compassion for whatever's going on in the world. I can be a change agent for what's going on in the world. If I see something that, I feel isn't right, I can both internally and externally help out. I can internally help out by, my thoughts and prayers for the situation. And if I feel I can help externally, I can volunteer to help whatever the situation is, whatever I can do, to better it. So that's how I approach the news when I read it. I try to make sure my attitude is correct when I'm reading the news. Has anyone noticed that when you have like a negative attitude towards something, anything, it's like a domino effect. All of a sudden, everything in the world seems to be negative. Anybody? I know that happened to me. And I'll tell you a story recently, but actually it happened last year, that I had a negative attitude about. So I was out on maternity leave for 6 weeks. I had just started a new job. So I didn't have, any benefits or anything. I had to take these 6 weeks without any pay. So once I got back to work after the 6 weeks, my daughter somebody in her daycare class ended up getting tested positive for COVID, so her whole class had to be out for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh goodness. First, I was worried because I was like, my daughter's gonna get COVID. I'm so worried. Oh my God, I don't want her to get it. She's a baby, And then secondly, I'm like, oh, I have to do another 2 weeks out that I can't get paid because I'm still a temp worker. I just started a new job. So all these negative thoughts were just swirling in my head. And I'm just like, oh goodness. And then that night when I went to take my contacts out, I wear hard contacts because I have this eye disease called keratoconus. But I had to take my contacts out and I used a plunger to take it out. So my contact fell out of my eye, when I took it out with the plunger, it just fell out and I didn't know where it went. So I looked on the floor, I looked on my desk, I didn't see it. Now I'm already a messy person, so it's already a mess in my room. So I was like, okay, let me just clean it up and I'm find a contact. So I had to be really careful so I wouldn't step on it. So I cleaned up my floor, cleaned up my desk, still couldn't find the contact. I was like up here, I was like, no, this isn't happening to me, Then I'll have to give me a new contact. I'm like, but wait, it has to be somewhere. It can't just disappear into thin air. It has to be somewhere. So I was like, okay, I'm just looking for it in the morning. It's already, dark out. And, even though I had the light on, it's just, I was already tired and I already wasn't in the right mindset. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and look for it tomorrow. So I went ahead and went to bed and I was like, okay, let me change my attitude. So I'm going to go into meditation, connect with God, listen to some relaxing music, and that's what I did. And then I went to sleep. And then in the morning, I approached it with a different attitude. I was like, okay, this contact has to be in here somewhere. So let's think about this, Melissa. So there's a speaker box under my desk. I was like, well, maybe it fell in here. But that would be kind of weird that it fell in there because it's like a speaker box and there's like a hole like right here. So I was like, did it fall in that hole? And I picked the speaker box up, shook it, and there was something rattling in there. I was like, what? My contact's in here? And I was trying to see if I could maneuver it out, but I couldn't. I couldn't maneuver it out, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to do something else. So I was like, well, I can get this side open here. So I had to get a screwdriver in order to just unscrew it and get it open. And so that's what I did. And lo and behold, my contact was in there. I was so happy. I was like, I did not make this up. It's really happening to me. So yes, and then after that, everything else, started falling into place. My daughter wasn't sick. I was able to spend 2 weeks with her, and it was such a blessing to be able to spend those 2 weeks with her. And I was able to get half of my pay, and I was like so happy. I was like, oh, thank you, God, thank you, God. I know, crazy story, right? So a few other things that Dr. Maxwell said that really resonated with me was that a positive attitude does not accept defeat. And it regroups by being open to intuitive self-direction from our higher-minded God. This may indicate that it is time to try something different or take another approach. And that's what I had to do. I had to take another approach to finding my contact. And then it says, a positive transcendent attitude is one that knows that in spite of any difficulty, one's God mind will show the way for improvement. We have to take the time to connect with God, meditation, and we will face any difficulty and come out on top. And we have to remember that there is no lesser power than God, for God is the ultimate power. And that if we are in acceptance of this, we will know that anything that we go through, we can get through with the power of God within us. And also, a positive, transcendent attitude can be enforced through the daily act of meditation. For meditation brings about an inner peace that clears the way for intuition to direct and guide us out of any negative situation. Now, we may have a temporary reaction to a negative situation. I mean, we are half human. Of course, we're going to react, But what we have to remember is that we have to quickly retreat from this reaction and align our mind with the power and presence of God. Now, we cannot blame others. If we are in a negative situation with others, we cannot blame the other person. But instead, we have to tune into the source of all wisdom within for guidance and correcting any negative situation that involves others. So I say today, as you go about your Sunday and you start a work week, remember to maintain a positive attitude. And it's okay. I know there's so much going on in the world that it can be hard to maintain a positive attitude. But we have help. For we have God within us to help us. We can use affirmations. I know I love affirmations. I use them all the time. But we have affirmations. We have God to help us maintain a positive attitude throughout these difficult times. So, for the meditation, I'm going to read a prayer treatment on maintaining a positive attitude. So get comfortable on your seats, close your eyes, relax, and listen to the words I'm about to read. Divine God mind of the universe, at the center of my mind and being, your presence is the source of my having and maintaining a positive attitude about me and my life. It is through your transcendent being that all dark shadows of negativity are removed from my mind. My mind thinks clearly in the infinite light of your presence within me. My positive attitude about myself is founded upon and moved by your presence within me every day of my life. My attitude is one of unwavering positivism, as your presence within me is with me eternally. For you, the blessing of my innermost reality, and thus my attitude about my life. I give thanks. I let it be so, and so it is. Thank you.